You stand on the edge of a vast horizon. The wind bites your skin. The air is cold and thin. You have no map in your hands. You have no compass in your pocket. The world stretches out in every direction, hiding dangers you cannot even begin to predict. You feel completely alone. How do you know which way to walk? For about 300,000 years, this is not a hypothetical situation. This is your daily reality. You wake up when your body is ready. No alarm dictates your morning. No digital chime forces you out of a warm bed. You look up at the shifting clouds. You feel the temperature of the air on your cheeks. You prepare to move across an unforgiving landscape. Are you ready to survive today? Your survival depends entirely on movement. You cannot stay in one place. The food will run out if you remain stationary. The water will dry up and disappear into the cracked earth. The predators will eventually find your scent if you linger too long. You must always push forward into the unknown. How does your brain process such terrifying uncertainty? Today you rely on a glowing screen. You panic when the signal drops. You feel helpless when a digital voice stops telling you to turn left at the next intersection. You feel lost in your own neighborhood without a satellite guiding your steps. But your ancestors conquered every continent on this planet using nothing but the computational power of their own minds and the sensory input of their bodies. How did you pull off this impossible feat? You are fundamentally built to move. Your physical form is a masterpiece of endurance engineering. Your feet have elastic arches that act as organic springs. Your sweat glands allow you to cool down while running under the hot sun. This gives you a massive evolutionary edge over prey that overheats and collapses in the tall grass. You can outrun almost any animal on Earth over long distances. But endurance means absolutely nothing if you run in the wrong direction. How do you find a path where none exists? You learn to follow the water. You track the massive herds across the plains. You scan the horizon for the greenest valleys. You use your finely tuned vision to detect subtle changes in plant life from miles away. You smell the moisture in the air long before you ever see the river flowing through the canyon. Does this sound like a superpower to you? It is just biology. Consider the ancient bones buried deep in the dirt of Georgia. A paleoanthropologist named David Lord Kipanids dug into the earth at a site called Dmanisi. He uncovered ancient skulls hiding beneath the soil. These skulls belonged to human ancestors who lived roughly 1.8 million years ago. What were they doing so far from home? These early ancestors left the warm cradle of Africa. They walked thousands of miles into strange and freezing landscapes. They did this without the luxury of winter coats or domesticated beasts of burden. They had their bare feet. They had simple stone tools. They had each other. Did they chase migrating animals, or did they simply want to see what was hiding over the next hill? Curiosity is woven deeply into your DNA. You are a wanderer by nature. You walk relentlessly across the continents. You watch the sky above you every single night. The stars are not just pretty lights twinkling in the dark. They are an incredibly complex map painted on the ceiling of the world. They move in predictable patterns as the earth turns beneath your feet. Do you know how to read them? You learn these stellar patterns intimately. You memorize the position of the constellations during different seasons. You teach them to your children through songs and fireside stories. You weave navigation directly into your cultural mythology. What happens when the sky goes completely dark and heavy clouds hide your guiding lights? You look down at the earth. You read the dirt. You see a broken twig. You notice the crushed grass where a massive beast recently walked. You read the landscape just like a modern person reads a printed book. Are you a detective of the wild? You are more than a detective. You are a master navigator of land and sea. The oceans seem like an impossible barrier to a creature without gills. Water stretches out endlessly until it finally meets the sky. You cannot drink the salty waves. You cannot walk on the shifting surface. How do you cross the great blue void? You build a boat. You trust the carved wood. You trust the crashing waves to carry you forward. In Australia, a geologist named Jim Bowler walked across an ancient and dry lake bed called Lake Mungo. He found the physical remains of humans who lived there. These bones are roughly 40,000 years old. How did they get to an isolated island continent? To reach Australia, your ancestors had to cross deep open ocean. They had to navigate the treacherous waters of Wallacea. They could not see land on the other side. They sailed directly into the absolute unknown. They relied on an intense understanding of ocean currents and weather patterns. They relied on sheer human bravery. They did not do this by accident. Does the thought of sailing into nothingness terrify you? It absolutely should terrify you. But your ancestors did it anyway. They faced the roaring ocean and conquered it. So let us recreate a day in your life during a great and world-changing migration. The air is crisp. The air is absolutely freezing. You are standing on the muddy shores of a massive land bridge known as Beringia. Do you know where you are going? This is a massive strip of land connecting Asia to North America. It is exposed only because the Ice Age has locked up the ocean water in giant towering glaciers. The wind howls violently across the flat steppe. You pull your thick animal skin cloak tighter around your shivering shoulders. You look closely at the deep tracks pressed into the fresh snow. Are you ready to track your next meal? A herd of caribou passed through this exact spot hours ago. You point your stone-tipped spear forward. You take a heavy step into the frost. Your entire family follows you blindly. They trust your ability to read the frozen earth. You do not know that you are discovering a brand new continent. How could you possibly know that? You only know that you are hungry. The meat is moving south toward warmer climates. You walk for days. You walk for grueling weeks. You navigate by studying the shape of the distant mountains. You memorize the unique silhouette of every jagged snow-capped peak. You build a mental map that rivals any modern satellite imagery. How much detail can your human brain truly hold? As time passes, your navigation skills become almost supernatural. You learn the rhythms of the natural world. You take to the vast Pacific Ocean. You paddle out in wooden outrigger canoes. You navigate thousands of miles of open water. You do this without a single physical instrument. How is this even biologically possible? An anthropologist named Ben Finney studied this exact phenomenon. He wanted to know how the ancient Polynesians found tiny and isolated islands. These islands were hidden in the middle of a massive and deadly ocean. He helped build and sail a traditional voyaging canoe called the hokulia to test ancient methods. He proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that you do not need modern instruments to sail the entire world. Do you trust your own senses that much? You use the rising sun to find east. You use the setting stars to hold your course at night. You carefully read the flight paths of specific seabirds. You know they always fly toward land as the sun goes down. You feel the subtle and invisible changes in the ocean swells. These swells hit the wooden hull of your canoe. The water itself tells you where the land is hiding. Are you one with the natural world? You become a living extension of the environment around you. Your brain maps the ocean swells as they reflect off distant islands. You learn the language of the waves. You learn the dialect of the wind. You navigate by the color of the water beneath your boat. You navigate by the types of clouds forming on the horizon. The clouds over land look different than the clouds over deep water. Do you have the patience to watch the sky all day? You have no other choice. Your survival depends on this intense observation. You commit every detail to memory. You pass this knowledge down orally. An anthropologist named Polly Wiesner studied how ancient and modern hunter-gatherers use storytelling. She found that firelight stories are crucial for transmitting survival knowledge across generations. You sit around the fire. You listen to the elders speak. You learn the mental maps of the world before you ever walk the physical paths. Are you paying attention to the stories? These stories are your only maps. They contain the directions to hidden water sources. They describe the exact shape of a mountain range you have never seen. They warn you about the dangerous territories of other tribes. You carry the geography of the world inside your mind. You carry the collective wisdom of thousands of ancestors. You are a biological hard drive of geographical data. What happens when you encounter people you have never met before? You learn to trade. You learn to share knowledge. An evolutionary geneticist named Svante Pääbo sequenced the DNA of ancient hominins. He studied fragments of bone from a cold cave in Siberia called Denisova Cave. His research revealed something incredible about your deep past. Your ancestors did not just kill the strangers they met. They mingled with them. They traded with them. They had children with them. Did you think your past was just endless warfare? The reality is much more complex. You survived by cooperating. You survived by building massive social networks across vast distances. You traded rare stones. You traded marine shells. You traded the secrets of the landscape. An anthropologist named Richard Lee studied the sand people of the Kalahari Desert. He documented how they maintain extensive social networks. They use these networks to survive in a harsh and unpredictable environment. You do the exact same thing. You rely on your distant neighbors when the food runs out in your own territory. You rely on their mental maps when you need to travel to new lands. Does human connection keep you alive? It is the most powerful survival tool you possess. You walk the earth hand in hand with your community. You cross the deserts. You cross the freezing tundras. You cross the endless oceans. You inhabit every single environment on the face of the earth. You are the ultimate adaptable animal. You modify your clothing. You modify your tools. You never modify your deep desire to keep moving forward. You endure immense physical hardship simply to see what is on the other side of a mountain. An anthropologist named James Sussman analyzed the work habits of early human societies. He discovered that you do not spend all your time frantically struggling to survive. You spend a significant portion of your days resting and socializing. You work just enough to meet your immediate needs. You do not hoard resources like modern humans do. Why would you carry extra weight when you have to walk 20 miles tomorrow? You travel light. You carry only what is absolutely necessary. You carry your children. You carry your spears. You carry your mental maps. You leave everything else behind. You trust that the earth will provide for you at your next destination. This requires an immense amount of psychological resilience. You face giant predators. You face the cave lions of Europe. You face the short-faced bears of the Americas. You face the saber-toothed cats of Africa. You are small and relatively weak compared to these monsters. You do not have natural armor or venom. How do you sleep at night without being eaten? You sleep close to the fire. You sleep in shifts. You rely on the watchful eyes of your community. You rely on the sharp hearing of the domesticated dogs that eventually join your long journey. You trade safety for mobility. You accept the constant risk of death in exchange for total freedom. You are bound by nothing but the seasons. You move with the spring blooms. You retreat from the winter storms. You live in perfect synchronization with the breathing of the planet. Why did you ever stop walking? You might logically think that settling down was a massive upgrade for humanity. You might think that building permanent houses made you safer. You might think that farming neat rows of crops made your life infinitely better. But agriculture is actually a trap. When you stopped moving, your world shrank dramatically. Your diet became incredibly restricted to just a few staple crops. Did you know farming made you fundamentally weaker? Your bones became more fragile. Your teeth rotted from the high-carbohydrate diet. Disease spread faster when you lived in crowded and unsanitary spaces. You lived in close quarters with domesticated animals. You lived in highly concentrated groups of other people. Your ancestors who walked the earth were taller. They were stronger. They enjoyed vastly more varied diets than the early farmers who eventually replaced them. Movement was your greatest evolutionary strength. Why did you trade the entire world for a single plot of dirt? Stillness became your permanent cage. You locked yourself behind walls. You tied yourself to the harvest seasons. You traded the infinite horizon for a repetitive cycle of grueling labor. Today you live in a world of absolute and unyielding stillness. You sit in a padded chair. You stare at a flat and glowing screen. Your food is brought directly to your door in a cardboard box. This requires absolutely zero physical effort to obtain. Have you lost your ancient edge? Your physical world has shrunk down to the size of a few small rooms. You rarely walk more than a few thousand steps a day. You complain when you have to park far away from the grocery store entrance. But your brain is still the complex and pattern-seeking brain of a global wanderer. When you feel unexpectedly restless, When you feel trapped in your daily routine, it is just your ancient DNA screaming at you to move. Your body desperately wants to walk. Does your mind want to map a new valley? You have the incredible hardware of a legendary explorer. You have the sensory equipment to navigate a raging ocean. You have the physical endurance to run down an antelope. You are just running the depressing software of a modern desk worker. You look at the vast horizon. You have no map in your hands. You have no compass in your pocket. You stand on the edge of a vast horizon.